Around the World Lit Audio 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. Chapter 3. Full Narration Script. Channel Intro. Welcome to Around the World Lit Audio, the greatest novels ever written, from every corner of the world, in English. New chapter every week, free to listen. Chapter 3. In Chapter 1, Macondo was founded beside a clear river, by a man who killed his neighbor, and could not outrun the ghost. In Chapter 2, the gypsy Melquiades began writing his manuscripts in a language no one could read, and a quiet boy named Aureliano sat in the corner of the workshop, watching everything. In Chapter 3, something arrives in Macondo that no one can explain, and no one can stop. It begins with a single word. It ends with the village forgetting everything it ever knew. Chapter 3. It came without warning, the way the worst things always do. One night a villager could not sleep. He lay in his bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the jungle, and felt nothing unusual, only the ordinary restlessness of a man whose mind would not quiet itself. He got up. He drank water. He went back to bed. He still could not sleep. The next night the same thing happened, and the night after that. Within a week, his wife could not sleep either. Then his children. Then his neighbors. Then, slowly, inexorably, like a tide coming in, the entire village of Macondo stopped sleeping. At first no one was alarmed. People found that without sleep they had more hours in the day. They worked longer. They talked more. Children who had previously needed 10 hours of sleep now played through the night with no sign of fatigue. Adults discovered that the body, deprived of sleep, does not immediately collapse. It continues, with a strange bright energy, as though running on something other than rest. José Arcadio Buendía observed all of this with scientific interest. He noted the symptoms carefully. He wrote them down. He questioned the affected villagers with the thoroughness of a man who believes every problem has a solution if you gather enough data. What he did not yet understand was that the illness had a second stage. And the second stage was far worse than the first. The second stage was forgetting. It began with small things. A woman could not remember the name of the tool she used to grind corn. A man forgot what the object hanging on his kitchen wall was called. A child pointed at a goat and could not produce the word for it. Then larger things began to disappear. People forgot the names of their neighbors. They forgot what certain foods tasted like. They forgot the names of their parents. José Arcadio Buendía understood immediately that this was not ordinary forgetting. This was the forgetting that comes when the mind, deprived of the nightly process of sleep, in which memories are sorted and stored, begins to lose its grip on everything it has accumulated. Without sleep, the past was dissolving. Without the past, there would soon be nothing left of the people who had lived it. He called a meeting of the village. He stood in the square and explained what was happening in the careful, precise language of a man who has thought about something for a long time, and arrived at a conclusion he does not enjoy. The disease, he told them, was called insomnia. It was contagious. It had no known cure, and if it continued on its current course, within months the entire village of Macondo would be populated by people who remembered nothing, not their names, not their histories, not the faces of their own children. The village was silent. Then someone asked what they should do. José Arcadio Buendía thought for a moment. Then he told them they would write everything down. Every object in every house would be labeled with its name and its function. Every person would carry a card with their name, and the names of their family members. Every building, every animal, every tool, every plant would be tagged and described. If memory could not be trusted, then the village would be turned into a text, a record so thorough and so detailed that even a person who had forgotten everything could walk through Macondo and read the world back into existence. The village set to work immediately. They wrote on scraps of paper, on pieces of bark, on the flat surfaces of stones. They hung labels from the necks of animals. They painted names on the sides of buildings. They wrote descriptions of things that seemed obvious. This is a cow. It must be milked every morning, because obvious things, José Arcadio Buendía had realized, were the first things to go. Ursula organized the labeling of the house with her usual efficiency. She moved from room to room, attaching tags to everything: the stove, the table, the chairs, the clock on the wall. She labeled the clock with its name, and then, thinking further, added a note: this machine measures time. At the top of each hour it strikes once for each hour that has passed since midnight. She paused after writing this. Then she added one more line: time is the thing that passes and does not return. José Arcadio Buendía, reading this over her shoulder, nodded. It was, he thought, the most accurate definition of time he had ever encountered. At the entrance to the village he erected a large sign. It read, God exists. Below it, in smaller letters, and his name is God. He was not entirely sure this was true, but he thought it was important that it be written down, in case anyone forgot. The labeling system worked. After a fashion, people moved through the village reading the tags on things and reassembling a version of the world from the descriptions attached to it. It was a reduced world, a world made of words rather than experience, but it was better than the alternative. There was, however, one thing that could not be labeled. Feelings could not be labeled. The particular quality of an afternoon, the specific weight of grief, the texture of happiness, these things had no tags, no descriptions, no cards. They existed only in the memory of having felt them, and memory was precisely what was disappearing. Aureliano noticed this first. He was sitting in the workshop one evening when he realized he could not remember what his mother's laugh sounded like. He knew she laughed. He knew it was a particular laugh, different from anyone else's. But the sound itself, the actual sound, was gone. He could see the label he would write for it. He could not hear it. He said nothing about this to anyone. He simply noted it, the way he noted everything, and filed it away in whatever part of his mind was still intact. He was 11 years old. It was around this time that a stranger arrived in Macondo. He came from the direction of the swamp, alone, on foot, carrying nothing but a small bag, and a look of someone who has traveled a very long distance, and is not entirely sure why. He was an old man, older than anyone in the village, with skin the color of old wood and eyes that moved slowly, taking in everything without apparent surprise. He said his name was Visitacion. He said he had come from a tribe to the north, a tribe that had been destroyed by the insomnia plague many years before. He and his brother were the only survivors. His brother had died on the road. He had kept walking. He recognized the symptoms immediately. He sat with José Arcadio Buendía and told him what he knew. The insomnia plague, he said, always followed the same course. First the sleeplessness, then the forgetting, then, finally, a state he called the idiot's condition, a state in which the affected person is still alive, still breathing, still capable of basic physical functions, but has lost all memory so completely that they exist in a permanent, featureless present, with no past to remember and no future to anticipate. They are alive, but they are no longer, in any meaningful sense, a person. His tribe, he said, had reached this stage within a year of the plague's arrival. The labels had helped, but not enough. The disease had continued its work regardless, until one morning the entire tribe had woken up, those who still woke up at all, and stared at each other with the blank and curious eyes of animals. José Arcadio Buendía asked if there was a cure. Visitacion said he did not know of one. He had heard of remedies, certain plants, certain preparations, but none that he had seen work with his own eyes. José Arcadio Buendía thanked him, and told him he was welcome to stay in Macondo as long as he wished. Visitacion stayed. He was given a small room at the back of the house. He spent his days sitting in the shade of the almond trees, watching the labeled village with the particular calm of a man who has already seen how the story ends. It was Melquiades who saved them. He arrived one afternoon without announcement, as he always did, looking somewhat better than the last time, less translucent, less like a man through whom light was beginning to pass. He carried with him a small dark bottle and a folded piece of paper. He had heard about the plague, he said. He had brought a remedy. The remedy was a liquid the color of dark honey, thick and slightly sweet-smelling, which Melquiades said should be taken in small doses each morning before eating. He would not say what was in it. He would not say where he had obtained it. He simply set the bottle on the table, unfolded the piece of paper, which contained instructions written in his small cramped hand, and told José Arcadio Buendía that if the instructions were followed exactly, the village would recover. José Arcadio Buendía read the instructions carefully. Then he looked up at Melquiades. "Why are you helping us?" he asked. Melquiades considered this question for a long moment. "Because the story is not finished yet," he said, "and it cannot finish while everyone has forgotten it." He left that same evening, before anyone could ask him anything else. The remedy worked. Within a week of the first doses, people began to sleep again. Short, shallow sleeps at first, an hour here, 2 hours there, but real sleep, the kind in which the mind does its work of sorting and storing, and making sense of things. The labels on the walls of Macondo began to seem unnecessary, then faintly embarrassing, then absurd. People took them down one by one. The village reassembled itself from the inside out, memory returning not all at once, but gradually, the way feeling returns to a limb that has been asleep, first a tingling, then a warmth, then the full specific weight of knowing who you are and where you came from and what the people around you mean to you. The last label to come down was the one Ursula had put on the clock. She took it down herself, on a morning when the air smelled of rain and the river was running high in gold. She read it one last time. Time is the thing that passes and does not return, and then she folded it carefully, and put it in the wooden box, where she kept important papers. She was not sure why she kept it. It said nothing she did not know. but something about the act of having written it down, of having thought carefully enough about time to reduce it to a sentence, felt important to her, like a thing that should not be thrown away. Macondo remembered itself. The crisis passed, but something had changed. Something small and difficult to name, the way the most significant changes always are. The village had learned, in those weeks of forgetting, that memory is not permanent, that the self is not a fixed thing, but a continuous act of maintenance, something that must be tended and renewed, or it dissolves. This knowledge did not make anyone happy, but it made them careful. And careful, in Macondo, was a new thing entirely. Chapter Transition. You have reached the end of Chapter 3 of 100 Years of Solitude, by Gabriel García Márquez. In Chapter 4, Macondo receives its first outsiders, people who did not choose this place but were sent to it. A mysterious girl arrives carrying a bag of bones, and the Buendía family begins to expand in ways that will take generations to fully understand. Chapter 4 is available next week. Subscribe to Around the World Lit Audio so you never miss a chapter. A new chapter arrives every week.